One. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Town of Darayen's quarterly department heads meeting. We are in this forum today, safely distanced from one another. We've broken today's meeting into two shifts so that we can bring in a different group of department heads and make sure that everybody, we're following the indoor gathering rules appropriately. So with that, we will get started. We have Alicia Sillers this morning for Youth Commission. And wherever you're comfortable, we have a microphone here in the middle, Alicia. If everybody's comfortable coming to the microphone, that way you can be recorded on TV 79. Feeling a little bit RTM-ish here today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My report is full of a lot of detail regarding the summer camp program.
Hold on one second, Alicia. If you're comfortable speaking without your mask, you can do so because
Okay.
it's a little bit garbled and I think people at home won't be able to understand. Okay, there you go.
Okay. Anyway, as I was saying, there's a lot of detail in the report, more than I typically include, regarding the summer camp program. And obviously, I'm happy to entertain any questions. I hope that I can answer them. It's been a very interesting process being able to launch this program. Just to synthesize, for this summer, the Town of Darien Summer Camp Program is mandated to comply with the Office of Early Childhood's guidelines, and they model their guidelines on child care facilities, which they oversee. Typically, they oversee and govern licensed and private camps. Municipal camps typically do not have to comply with what their regulations are. They follow municipal guidelines. I have found it to be a confusing and enlightening process, and I appreciate that parents in the community are very, very confused about what they're seeing in the community, not understanding that different organizations, from the school to the summer camps to programs that are being run by, for instance, the Parks and Rec Department, many organizations are governed by different agencies. And I've had numerous conversations with parents explaining why they see certain things taking place in certain areas and don't in others. That said, I'm going to share with you that I've had more than one parent weep with gratitude at the opportunity for their children to enjoy something normal, relatively normal, and that's been gratifying. The staff is phenomenal. I'm very sensitive to the fact that the staff is required to wear a mask while indoors all the time. Outdoors, they are permitted to go mask-free if they can maintain social distancing of 6 feet apart. That to me is, as important as anything, that we have 2 counselors per group this year. And part of what we're able to accomplish with that is mask breaks for the staff when they're indoors. One of the best things that we've done is secured event tents through Norwalk Tent Company. And moving forward, if I can secure the same good deal, I think it's not a bad option to have, because the schools, while they're great and the rooms have air conditioning, it offers shaded space outdoors. So there's been a tremendous learning curve. I think that for the most part, I and we are staying current with it and as often as possible ahead of it. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Board questions? Krista?
Thanks so much, Lisa. Are there any, you've mentioned a couple of upcoming activities, events. Is there anything new or updated from your report here on the movie or tops or the Halloween painting contest?
The Halloween painting contest, I'm confident that we'll be able to run because we limit the teams to 5, and we can have the kids wear masks. Obviously, we're going to be following some other guidelines than the OEC. I'm certain we're all curious to see what the guidelines are going to be regarding the schools. And tops, I'm actually meeting with the 2 co-chairs who ran it last year, and I'm going to kind of tap into some past folks. But that's, I'm so sick of the term uncharted territory, but talk about uncharted territory. social in nature. You know, there are some that we can do outdoors. I've reached out to a couple of the facilities that we use. I know the bowling alley, for instance, is open. You know, it's just nothing is normal. We're creating new normal. So I can't answer that at this point.
Okay, fair. And the movie, is there?
The movie, we're working with Parks and Rec and not-for-profit agencies who are interested in offering either a drive-in movie or a movie at the beach. One of the things that I did through this whole process is I joined a number of similar groups, nationally, statewide, locally, regionally, and one of the groups accomplished a drive-in movie. Well, it wasn't drive-in, actually. It was similar to what we do at the beach, but it was at a park. And what they did is that they used spray, and they created 38 circles on their field. And people went to Sign Up Genius and reserved a spot. And then when they got to the park, they took a flag and they posted it on their spot, and it was a tremendous success. So there are a lot of models out there. You know, again, we're pulling all the information, weeding through. I think, as I said in the report, you know, it's not so much about getting it right, it's the concern about getting it wrong. They're equally as important. So a lot of caution, a lot of hope, a lot of grit, a lot of effort.
Other questions for Alicia?
No, thank you. Thank you so much for your.
Alicia, just had one question.
Sure.
I saw the various numbers of attendees at the camp. Was that, given all of the constraints and all of the confusion, was that considered a pretty good result?
I think it's a tremendous result, and that number has changed since I submitted the report. I had someone who registered yesterday morning. I had 4 registrations on Friday afternoon. So, you know, a lot of people, I think, wanted to try it for a week and figure it out. And when we created those guidelines, you know, when we created that capacity, we were complying with the then guidelines that the OEC had put forth of limiting it to 30, and then limiting, a program could be 30, and then limiting it to 50. And it just, you know, there came a point where we couldn't keep hopping. And, you know, as of like June 1st, before we received permission, we were at 3 schools, and then we scrapped that. I mean, there's been so many moving parts. And it was like knowing that we had to put together a puzzle, but not quite knowing what it looked like, and not knowing where all the pieces were. So I'm thrilled with the numbers. I'm thrilled with the feedback, and I'm so impressed with the staff.
My final question is, will you have any camp activities at Oxford Ridge School on the playground in August?
No.
Thank you.
No, July 31st.
I got a project underway. I want to make sure.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
You'll have to tell me about it later.
It's moving the playground.
Yeah, no, and they've been great.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Alicia, I want to thank you so much. I know how you, blood, sweat, and tears over the planning
Literally.
for camp. But it sounds like it's all moving forward, and
Thank you.
glad that the kids can have something to do.
Thanks.
you.
Sorry, last one more question, which I'll probably ask of everyone. From a budget perspective, could you comment briefly on how things are going? You know, obviously camp has been modified. Are there any needs that you foresee now or going forward from a financial perspective?
Running the program as we're running it will definitely have a budgetary impact. And the details of that I can get to you later, Krista, but we're definitely operating at a deficit. But, you know, in speaking with administration in March and April and May, part of the decision to move forward was the awareness that we would be. You know, we modified what the cost was because we're not doing any trips. But I think that the strong sentiment was that if we can offer something, if we could do it, we would do it.
Absolutely. No, I just want to make sure that, so we understand where we are financially from the town perspective,
Right.
given the current state of affairs. So
And
thank you.
And it is operating out of this year's budget.
Oh,
So that's about the
You're
best
doing
that I can answer that question right now.
That's fine. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, you can see in her report all the revenue loss.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, revenue loss is not considered an expense that can be recaptured in any kind of reimbursement.
Correct.
Anyway,
And that will be true of other departments as well.
sorry for taking all
Thank
your
you.
time.
Okay, thank you. Next, Joe Larchevek from Post 53. Morning, Joe.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see everybody not on a computer screen. So we have the quarterly report. You have the main summary is the volume is down significantly compared to the first quarter of 2020 as well as last year's volume. Again, pretty much all to do with the current pandemic. Sort of broke it down. There's not much variance in the report from previously. The probably most significant one is the mutual aid that we generally provide, particularly to Norwalk, but as well as Stanford. Those numbers are also down. So we have not needed to respond into those cities to help them. Again, their volume has also been affected by the pandemic. We continue to track the paramedic response times, both during the day when they're in town and at night when they're over in Glenbrook. So we still see that significant increase in their response time at night, so we'll be very excited when they're back with us over here on Post Road. I also included a mid-year summary just to give you some idea of what our call volume is in the first 6 months of the year. So what our most common calls for service are, primarily it's falls. And then we go to motor vehicle accidents. Hold on, I'm just sort of flipping through here, excuse me. There we go. Yeah, so falls, general illness and sick people, and then traffic accidents are our top three. So you have that as well. 75% of our transports go to Stanford Hospital, and the others go to Norwalk. The other report that I gave you was just sort of a summary of our operations during the pandemic. To date, and this is valid even as of today, we've taken 12 patients who have tested positive in the ED for COVID-19. The first one was on March 26th, and our most recent case was on July 3rd. So we have seen a significant decrease in concerning cases. We maintain a high level of suspicion. Our crews are very vigilant to make sure that they are wearing their protection all the time. But luckily, that sort of surge we saw towards the end of March, the beginning of April, has coincided with the flattening of the curve elsewhere, and we've seen a decrease in the volume. If you look at the second page of the report, where it sort of matches and compares our volume from the same 4-month period of last year to the pandemic period of this year, our transports are significantly down, particularly our paramedic transports are down over 22% from the same period last year. And then you can see by the daily volume chart where we've seen our significant dip in call volume, particularly in the first 2 or 3 weeks of April. Call volume has returned since then, and again, I think it's just people have felt a little more comfortable in seeking health care, especially in the emergency department setting. So I'll answer any questions you have on the report, and I just wanted to, first off, before I do that, just thank everybody, particularly the residents. Everybody has been so supportive and great. You should be very proud of the members of Post 53, especially the kids, but the adults as well, who have all maintained their post and stayed to make sure that the service went on uninterrupted. So, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Questions for Joe? Sarah?
Normally you have a spring class for the incoming 9th grade, and I know they didn't have that, so there's a fall class. Would there be a second class to help kind of gain?
Yes, so actually what we've done is we've created 3 classes to try to keep the numbers down. Again, we were very happy to say that this is the largest influx of applications we've ever had, which again was a little bit of a surprise in the current environment, but we were excited to see a lot of 8th graders interested. So to keep our social distancing requirements in place, we modified the first aid classes to be half Zoom, half in person, but then we split them into 3s to make sure we can keep them all safe and socially distant.
And when do you anticipate being back in 701 with the paramedics? Should maybe
So
soon.
my understanding is they're just waiting to finish some of the last paving work on the sidewalk, and then we should be back hopefully in the next week, I believe.
Perfect.
So,
Okay, thank you so much,
all
Joe.
right, thank you.
Okay. Jim Cameron, TV 79.
Good morning.
Morning.
My report covers everything that we've done in the last quarter, and if you actually remember back to March, I can't remember back to March, Jamie and Kate Bush asked me, can we keep going? Can we keep covering meetings? And I told her, both of them, yes, and we have. We've covered everything that's happened by Zoom, by GoToMeeting, in 206, at Police Department headquarters. This is the first time most of us have been back in the auditorium in many, many months, and this is the debut of our new camera system and our new switching equipment in the booth, which was part of the grant that we received from the Darien Foundation, a $50,000 grant that has really rejuvenated TV 79, so we're very grateful to them. There's a mistake in the written portion of my report, which was written before I was able to get the Vimeo statistics. I initially thought that our viewership was down in the last quarter. It's actually been up, and up significantly in no small part due to the production of the COVID-19 mental health PSAs that were suggested by Ms. Stevenson in cooperation with the Darien Foundation and executed by the DAF Media Group. 5 of those PSAs, there were 18 in total, are among the top 25 programs viewed in the last quarter. On both Vimeo and on Facebook, they had a combined 853 views. So there's definitely been an audience for that. And now with our new Castus rotation, I'm able to run those on a regular basis throughout the day. So if you have not yet tuned in on your cable to watch TV 79, I think you'll find it is completely rejuvenated. It's not just the same 6 meetings that we used to run in rotation. We're now able to run hundreds of meetings. And I sent you all a memo talking about some of our plans for expanded programming. I'm happy to discuss that either now or at a later meeting, but I think there's great potential for increasing our viewership on the cable channel, attracting people to come and look at meetings such as you mentioned to me about an interview I did with the sewer commissioner several years ago, which gave you some fresh information about how the sewer commission operates. And that's going to attract more eyeballs to watch government meetings as well, too. So a little carrot, a little candy, maybe they'll come in and eat their porridge as well, too. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jim. I don't know how we turn this into a program, but I think to follow on the value of some of those more in-depth conversations about the different agencies and committees, commissions, boards, it's a great recruiting tool, you know, as we're looking for volunteers to join some of these boards and commissions. You know, I'd like to think about how we can help use TV 79 in that regard.
Absolutely. The Inside Town Hall series and its counterpart, Community Matters, which is a larger kind of community view of some of the NGOs and nonprofits, we produced going back maybe 6 years or so, and some of those are now back in rotation. Bob Rith, who used to be on the Sewer Commission, is still on the air, and Olive Hauser is talking about what social services did when she was there. So the faces may have changed, but those agencies and their mandates continue. So I think it's a nice education for people in town about the breadth of services that the town offers all of its residents.
Great, thank you.
Any other
Questions for Jim?
questions?
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, excellent work, thank you, and thanks to the Darien Foundation.
I'm going to step closer to you just to adjust the microphones on my way out.
Thank you. Okay, Joan, good morning. Joan Hendrickson, our town treasurer.
Thank you, Jim. Just waiting for Jim to do his thing here.
Sorry.
It's okay. I'll go go maskless. I have nothing new to report, other than what's in this report, so just generally, as you would expect, I have a copy of the portfolio for May. The rates have definitively dropped since then, so again, this is, I don't have the June numbers yet. But any questions?
Questions for Joan?
I just had a question. You made a comment about the $25 million at Chase was being moved
Excuse
out.
me, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, you had a comment about, we had $25 million over at Chase, and you were moving that someplace else. It was all
No.
about,
No, we had some money in Chase. The Board of Finance wanted a separate
right.
account. We moved the $2 million that was there to another account, and we put the $25 million for the bond issue in Chase. So it's totally for Oxbridge now.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get.
That was your question? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, they wanted to be able to track the takedowns in a separate account, so
So that's why that's there.
that's why it's there. And we had a lot of discussion on the rate, which is very low. The Board of Finance was all over this, trying to figure out what the best thing was to do. My feeling is when you're in this type of environment and you've got a big number, you want it in the safest place possible, and that is the safest place possible right now.
Okay.
Okay? Any other questions?
Really quick.
Sarah.
Hi, you do note that there are some disputes with some of the banks for the statements. What are the major issues? There's some
That's actually been resolved in June. We thought it was one thing, they thought it was another. There wasn't enough of a paper trail for us to dispute our point. So we accepted what their rate was. We just understood it to be something else. We're very clear now to have a paper trail for, because a lot of the rates I'm negotiating are over the phone.
Okay.
But that particular bank, again, rate-wise, just so you know, I'm fighting for every basis point I can get. We've moved a couple of rates have moved up, because again, it's nice to be the town of Darien where you have a lot of money and you ask people if they can't do better. And I always ask that, and I always negotiate the rates. So particularly in this environment, it's very important.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else?
No. Thank you, Joan.
Thank you.
Karen Diller, Town Clerk.
Good morning, everyone. I really don't have much to add. As you can see, our revenue's actually been up for the last quarter. Sales are still going lickety-split. And also now we have the primary, which has kept us very busy. As of yesterday, we've sent over 2,000 ballots out. And more Democrat than Republican, actually. And that's about it, unless anybody has any other questions.
So you've received applications.
For over 2,000.
Okay.
And the state for the town of Darien sent out 8,000. So I'm sure we'll be getting more. You saw the drop box out front. People can return their ballots there if they're uncomfortable mailing them. And yeah, we're very busy.
That's great.
If a citizen wanted for some reason to confirm that you received their application for an absentee ballot, is there a mechanism for them to do that?
They can call us, and they can also, I believe, go on the Secretary of State's website and track it.
Fantastic. And secondly, if the legislature were to mandate mail-in ballots for the fall, what does that process look like? What would you need in terms of resources to be able to?
We would need additional help. I mean, we're spread pretty thin as it is because there's a 24-hour turnaround for the ballots. So like yesterday, we got 400 applications in the mail.
Wow.
So just opening 400 envelopes and alphabetizing 400, everything takes time. So we would need additional help. We haven't heard yet what the state's planning to do.
I know, I just wanted to
Yeah,
try to think ahead and be ready
Yeah,
in
no,
our
I have a-
minds to help you with what.
I have a feeling it's going to be very similar to what they've done for the primary. I'm hoping they don't mail out applications to every voter, but if they do, we'll deal with it.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Just out of curiosity, the dog licenses, the 1,234 licenses that were recorded, what is that a percentage of for registrations that you sent out? Is that 50%? Is it 90%?
Last year, we had about 2,500.
So it's about half.
It's about half. So it's a little bit behind what it was last year.
Okay.
I'm sure it will inch its way up. I think some people are out of town, and our animal control officer is very diligent in contacting people that haven't done it.
Any other questions for Karen?
All set?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kathy Larkins, tax collector.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just a few highlights. The collection rate for the fiscal year that just ended was 99.65, which was slightly lower than the year before. We did have some favorable variances on prior year taxes that were collected, delinquent interest, prorated real estate, and supplemental motor vehicle billings and collections were all above budget. And then I know there's a lot of curiosity about the applications for tax deferment as a result of COVID-19. There were 62 applications that were received for a total of $624,000 that were approved to get the 60-day deferment. 74% of that was from commercial property owners and 26% was from residential and individual taxpayers. I will say that there have been a number of people that have contacted me and they want to make partial payments. I received a payment from one of the top commercial owners of $35,000 this morning. So I do expect that, this $624,000 is not going to be deferred the full time. So, I don't know.
Thank you, Kathy. When you present your next quarterly report, if we could just do an accounting for this
An
to
update.
see if everybody is paid in full.
Okay, absolutely.
Kathy, the 99.65 rate that you give us is the blended rate for residential and commercial, right?
It's for everything, yes.
It's for everything. Do you break out the two separately internally?
No, I don't. I don't.
All right, well then, I won't ask you to. I was just curious because of the mechanism that the Board of Finance used to establish the rates for this current year's budget.
Okay.
I was curious if there was a way to track that, but it sounds like that'd be doing something completely extra, and in this day and age, you don't need to do something extra.
If you want me to, I'll find a way to do it.
I'll defer to see if Steve said that's something we should track.
It could be an interesting thing to track.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Thank you, Kathy. I was curious with the tax deferments, you mentioned 62 applications, so all the applications were accepted?
All that were submitted
All that were submitted were
on
accepted?
time were accepted, yes.
Did we receive them?
Well, let me put it this way. There were a lot of inquiries, okay? And there were certain properties, if the taxes were escrowed, they didn't qualify.
Right.
Some of them didn't get the applications in on time. Properties that are, say you have a tenant and the tenant's responsible for the taxes, if the owner didn't get the paperwork in on time, then they didn't, so there was a combination of things that happened.
Right.
So these are the applications that, were fully vetted, fully approved, and anyone that got it in with everything, and I worked with people, to make sure that everything was completed. But there were certain situations where they just either didn't get the paperwork in on time,
Or you
or
can't do
they
anything
didn't
with that.
qualify for
No,
one
yeah.
reason or another.
Okay, well, that's wonderful that those people who did complete the application, 100% were approved. That's
Yes.
wonderful. Thank you.
Kip, did you have?
Any other questions?
No, that was my question, was about number of applications accepted.
Is it too early to give us any indication for how the July payments have gone?
It's a little bit early.
Okay.
We are getting a huge volume of mail and a lot of online payments. We are available certain hours, 9 to 12 and 1 to 4 in room 119. We are not getting as many walk-ins as we normally would. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay. Registrars, John Vesey.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
It's been kind of busy setting the polls up. As of yesterday, we were short about 32 people working the polls, and when you figure we have about 75 normally. It's quite a number. But we've worked with several organizations like the League of Women Voters, the Men's Club, and we even ran an ad in the paper looking for volunteers. So we have about 17 volunteers. So when I hear Karen say she got a lot of applications, that means that much less at the polls. But we still have to open the polls. And the other thing I just want to point out, the absentee ballot process, it's a manual process counting it, and it can't be done until Election Day. So I've had to put a lot of poll workers in the absentee ballot counting organization that we set up in another room, which we might have to do in the auditorium this year. So staffing is really an issue this time. Even though I have to open the polls, I have to staff the absentee. So I think with the volunteers we have, the 17 new people, which we are doing some ad hoc training really quick, I think we can do it. I don't expect a big turnout at the polls, in-person turnout. It's more absentee, so. And then we'll see what happens in November. That's a whole nother. The other thing I just wanted to point out to the board, right now, Karen's expenses involving COVID-19 and my expenses in outfitting the poll workers and the voters, we're tracking that separate, and we will submit those expenses separately to the Secretary of State's office, who is going to reimburse us. So Jen's tracking it with me, and hopefully we'll get some money back on that. And that's separate from the other process.
Great.
So things are going, every day it changes. We're waiting to hear about November, how they're going to handle November. My only concern there is right now, if you send a ballot out and you're a Republican voter in Hartford or Darien, you get the same ballot. In November, we're now talking 6 different ballots for just Darien alone. And so Karen's going to have a lot of work no matter which way they go, but we're trying to support her. We got her a nice sign by the ballot box because we were a little concerned that people might put the ballots in the other mailbox. So we have a nice big sign out there in front of the box and on the curb. So we're doing everything we can to make it easier and safe for voters and poll workers alike.
So
Any questions?
Yeah, the one concern that I have is not at all with our internal process or the idea itself of mail-in ballots. It's the unknown consequence of the United States Postal Service. And, you know, people not knowing if they mail their ballot in, if their ballot has actually been received on time. So are you working with our postmaster here in Darien, having conversations about their process, how to make that better?
I think Karen's questioned them. What was the date that Ray?
We were told how the process works. We get the application, we put the information into the state voter registration system, and the state downloads that. Well, a mail house in Rhode Island downloads that, sends the ballot out, and that's about a 2-day turnaround. And then the postal service takes another 2 to 3 days to get the ballot actually delivered. So it does a long process that we normally do. So probably the last week before the election, before the primary, we'll stop using that system and we'll just send it out locally. Because it'd be quicker.
Okay.
Yeah, we do anticipate a few people bringing their ballots last minute to the polls, but we have to send them back to the ballot box out here, and we can't take them at the polls. So we're anticipating that. And again, counting is going to take a while, so I don't think the results are going to be out as fast as they normally were. And we do anticipate people sending them back late. We're going to get some late, and
Right.
they're not going to be counted. I think there was an article in the paper that a lot of them were returned undeliverable. And I think a lot of them went to colleges because a lot of the students put
Yeah.
their mailing address at the college, and they're not taking those. And I think that's one of the reasons. I want to assure you that our database is pretty up to date. I mean, it's possible somebody doesn't tell us they moved, but we're constantly updating it daily People are making changes, party changes, going from unaffiliated to a party. And there are people online making changes from party to party, but they don't realize there's a 90-day waiting period and they can't vote in the primary. So we're dealing with those calls too. But we expected that, so.
Go ahead, Karen.
We started getting applications back in April.
Yeah.
Because it was going to be in April. So we contacted every college student and everyone that sent one in back in the spring to see if they wanted it sent to a different address, if they were home. And so we took care of that as best we could.
Yeah, but there's always a few that make it through, you know. So we're doing our best, yes.
As far as the physical polling place in November, do you envision still having the same locations for the 6 districts, or is that being under consideration?
A lot of, Karen and I have been on conference calls for the last 6 months with the Secretary of State's office, and the consensus was that we'd keep the number of polls that we presently have. In other states where they combined them, they ended up getting big crowd, you know, a lot of people at one location. So we kept the 6 polls. I'm able to staff the 6 polls and protect the poll workers with shields and face masks and gloves, and I have everything. And so we're keeping all 6 open.
Okay, well,
and
that'll...
it's easier for the voter.
I was going to say, for continuity and for this whole process, it'll make it easier for the voters, so that's great.
Yeah, they looked into combining, but I think it's better that we have the 6 polls as long as I'm able to put a staff in that poll, so. Just less confusing. And we do get a lot of people saying, I want to vote in person. We've had a lot of calls to make sure that the polls are open and the polls are there for them to put their ballot in, so.
Thank you.
We're doing the best. Okay.
Any other questions? No. Thank you very much. I know between you and
Busy time.
your department and Karen's department, it's a lot of work this year. Thank you. Okay. Ed Gentile, Public Works.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just want to mention that the report you have in front of you is pretty all-inclusive of the things that are going on right now and some of the stuff that we finished. There are quite a few projects that we had to pick up in June and keep running. Some that we got to finish. As a matter of fact, we have programs that are coming up now, paving and sidewalk. They're all mentioned in the report. I'll take any questions on those. But I'd like to just mention that you'll see, if you look in the report, some trends that we did have. There is some reduction in our cooler system complaints from the residents, kind of expected because of the pandemic that we're in. But some of the things you don't see is our steady flow for MSW and single stream recycling. We did see an uptick a little bit in the MSW. People did tend to clean out their houses, their basements, their attics. So we did see an increase in April and May. Kind of slowed down lately. Single stream recycling has stayed pretty steady. Another item that we didn't mention in here was our pump stations. I track those pump stations regularly, monthly, to see any trends and increases in flows. And you'll see when the businesses shut down, my pump stations in the center of town went down, the flows themselves. Residential areas, the pump stations along the Norotan River, they all went up about 5 to 8%. So you could see the swing that had happened. So that, and the water use in the residential areas went up also. I was heard more along the lines of a little bit of watering, taking care of their places outside, but filling their pools, the new ones that came in and the older ones. So those are some of the trends that we did see. Just like to also mention that we will continue our programs. We do have, I have a plan, if we can get our sidewalks and pavings in order. I'd like to do a bulky pickup in the fall. I know we've asked about that. We generally do it in April, May, and June. We did had to cancel that this year. Maybe delay is a better word. I'd like to see if we can get one done in October, maybe before Thanksgiving, so the folks can at least enjoy that function again. Any questions that you may have, I'm here to answer.
Sarah. Hi. I know you have some projects coming up in the Norotan Heights area. There was some unexpected, I guess, timing for Heights Road and then on West Avenue. Will that affect the timing of other projects, like the one that's on Norotan over by Jake's Place, or are there other projects coming up?
We have been working very closely with the contractors for both of those projects at the Heights, and As you folks do know, that there is one of them that has kind of delayed their work right now and put it on hold, while the other one, the federal project, has ramped up and they continue to do their work. We're trying to get the road closures done now for them. The majority of that is the drainage, it's heavy box culvert work, so we are holding off, if you will, but there's really no schedule for the other two projects yet for construction. The one on Norotan and West Avenue, where we needed the easements, we currently have 6 out of the 7, and we're trying to get the last one done. That one being problematic because the owner now lives in South Carolina. So getting them to notarize the easement has been a little bit of a struggle, but we think between Jeremy and I, we have a plan now to get someone to go to their place and see if we can get it notarized from there and have it sent back up. But right now, looking at a construction schedule, I'm thinking that project will start maybe March of next year, going through the review process that we're gonna have to go through.
I have a couple, okay, go ahead.
The Ledge Road intersection, that's still up in the, I was reading what it said, but it's still within the CONDOT and all that, discussing it?
Yeah. In January, February, I spoke to the right-of-ways guy from, Terry Obie from DOT, and he said that we were going to get a letter from them laying out some ground rules, if you will, for that property.
Yep.
While I waited for that, I went and had a complete survey done of the property so that we can present what we would like them to release the restriction on. So we're waiting on them for their letter. I'm guessing with this pandemic, they haven't moved very quickly on a lot of things. They are working, some of them from home, some of them from the office. Just not a very quick response from them right now, but eventually we're gonna get some response from them, and if, you know, given a certain amount of time to where I think they've had an opportunity to review it, I will touch base with him again.
So that's gotta be, that completion of that project is, if at all, is some, wait, about a year off at least.
I'd say it's about 2 years.
2 years, even better.
That kind of falls in line with the other one. I don't really want to do both of them at the same time, Norotan and West and Norotan and Ledge. Doing construction on both of those intersections at the same time probably wouldn't be a good idea.
Okay.
Okay. Great, I just have a couple of things for you, Ed. In your report, you talk about the Darien Railroad Station platform and elevator project. I want to make sure that the public keeps aware that that's something that will be coming slated for the year 2022. And just to publicly state that you and I have discussed this, but to try and push the state DOT to include expanded canopies in that project.
I spoke to the lead construction engineer, design engineer, right after their meeting about that one, that item in particular, along with the railing systems and the elevators and the lobby enclosures around them. So that was one of the items I asked them to take back. We did talk about the funding for that. Obviously, their first response was that this project is not funded for that. And I said, well, that's something that, you know, the town and the DOT should have a conversation about before we scrap that idea.
Okay, thank you. The fats, oils, and grease fog ordinance, is it possible for us to all get a copy of that?
Absolutely.
To review that? And then
Sure.
do you know when you're hoping to have a public hearing of some kind on that?
I don't think, it's not scheduled yet, Jamie,
Okay.
but what I think what the, Craig is trying to do is, we have a meeting regarding the rate structure in August, and any change to that rate structure, we have a public hearing in September. It may be one of those that we piggyback on or not, I'm not sure yet. But that was the thought process of getting it done in the next 2 or 3 months to get that ordinance on the books.
Okay. And I have something I want to talk to you about there's certain homes, and maybe this is a Jeremy, Ed question together. There's certain homes that have gotten permission to tie their drainage into our storm sewer system. Do we have a charge for that? Do we impose a fee?
There's a permit.
Just a permit fee, but
pull
not
that.
like a use fee, like a sewer use fee?
Connection fee of some kind?
Yeah,
No, we do not have one of those.
okay. We'll talk more about that.
Does the increased discharge get captured in their sewer fees?
The connection to the stormwater system, is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
Is different than the sanitary sewer system.
they're separate systems.
Two separate systems. The sewer fee and the stormwaters are, no, they're not charged the same, or they're not included.
So where Jamie was going is absent the permit fee, there's no ongoing fee for incremental flow into the system.
That's correct.
Okay.
But on that same idea, the illicit connections that do go into the sewer, how are the discussions going on that? You say you're continuing to discuss ways to reduce the connections. How is that going? And
We just finished our second phase of localized flow assessment on the east side of town. We do have a meeting with our consultant next week. We're just trying to set up that team viewer meeting. We're going to have a special sewer meeting, so all 5 of the commissioners could enjoy the presentation, because I think it's a good topic for them to get involved in. It's going to roll us into our budgetary process of putting capital funds aside or talking about bonding some of the larger capital improvements that go along with that I&I study to help remove illicit connections.
Okay. And the last thing from me is just to publicly acknowledge the custodians that, you know, under your management and the amazing job that they've done here in Town Hall during the COVID crisis. They've kept us all very,
Thank you.
very safe. Appreciate
Tell
it.
you what, the transformation on some of the offices, just putting up glass, doing some partitions, moving things around, those gentlemen, along with our facilities guys, have done a great job in keeping this going. We still have a little bit of work to do, and if there's anybody, I think you mentioned, that doesn't feel easy about certain things, or please bring it to our attention. We've been as accommodating as we can. We will go overboard to make sure you feel comfortable in your office. And to that point, and Jamie, you mentioned it before to me, I think yesterday, we have an issue at the transfer station, and I just want to make sure the public knows that when you go in there, we expect you to have your masks on.
Yep.
It protects the workers from city carting, our scale house guys, not to mention the rest of the public that goes in and enjoys that facility. We did reopen the swap shop again. We are open from 9 to 1, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I think everybody has been on their best behavior there. Please keep that up.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. It is considered a public space, so masks are a must unless you have a health issue.
I just had one quick question. We did hear some feedback about some of the signs over at Highland Farm, and I went and walked the property. They do seem a little high. I could like barely reach some of them with my hands. Some of them are normally eye level when you're driving, and they just seem so kind of out of that sight line. What's the process to look at that?
Regulations for sign height is a 7-foot minimum, so you don't walk into them.
Okay.
So you'll see our, all our regulatory signs on our traffic roadways are 7 feet as a minimum, so that they meet the MUTCD guidelines. And that's how they were installed. Some of the signs are actually the smaller version, so they weren't so intrusive at the park. And I think you notice them now because, well, there's really nothing else up there but the signs.
Right.
I think once you see cars parked and people in there using the facility, and we put the guardrail up and it's a finished product, that those signs are going to blend right back into the workings there. And some landscaping that's coming too along the walls. So I think it's going to blend in.
So MUTC, I mean, just I want to, you know, join Sarah in this. I had the same feeling and was hoping that we could have a little bit more of an elegant solution on the signs at Highland Farms. Does that code apply to those parking areas as well, or just roadways?
I apply them to any town property where there are vehicle movements involved and pedestrians involved. I think it's a good guide for me. It doesn't mean that we can't adjust on town property where we see fit.
Okay.
It's a good guide for me to put something out there that legally, if there was somebody to get hurt, that we had a guidance to go by and that we used on site.
Okay. I'd like to talk more about that because, you know, I am hoping that we can find a little bit of a different, safe and legal solution.
Okay.
And just while we're on those signs, I went and looked at the property too, and the way the flow is in that parking area, if someone were to try to make the turn to exit the entrance section, there's actually the 2 signs, right? There's the one-way arrow sign, which is a little smaller and a little less obtrusive, and then there's a large square, bright red.
Do not enter.
Do the regulations mandate both of those signs?
One regulatory to give you direction of flow, plus the arrows on the ground. are guidance and I don't say mandatory, but they're guidance for what you should be using out there to assist people and know which way is in and which way is out. Because the worst thing in the world you want to have out there is a head-on. Though it'll be a slow impact to me, but still you don't want people not knowing which way to go. And the do not enter signs for an exit, those not mandatory on town property, are warranted in some areas. I can tell you that in taking over that plan and putting it into production, that was designed by an engineer. I did review some of the sign locations. I don't have a problem with them, but then again, I'm an engineer.
Maybe we'll meet out there one day.
Sure, absolutely.
I'll just pass on one comment that someone had shared with me, where they asked if there was a possibility that the signs could either be wood or if the posts that the signs reside on could be wood, because they felt that that would be more in keeping with the area and would hide better relative to glaring metal posts.
You said a very, very interesting word there. You said hide. I don't want the signs these folks would love to have them blend in. The reflectivity is very important so that you notice the signs so that you do read them. Kind of a fighting two forces
enough.
right there.
I was just sharing the comment that I received. So.
Two quick questions. Along the pathway at Highland, I don't know if this is you or another word, there's like these lookout spots, like, is there a particular reason that they're there, or?
I can tell you, oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I know what they are.
Thank you.
They could serve as, I'm not sure I call them getting but like resting areas.
Got it.
And what Pam and I talked about in Jamie Wells, putting benches there. And
It's a lovely idea.
so
Yeah.
you can sit on it and
Yep.
look out at the meadow.
That's what I figured. I wasn't sure if there was a plan for that. And then, Ed, are people paying attention to the watering guidelines? I know we're still kind of in a drought, correct?
I can't answer that, to be
Okay.
honest with you. Do I see sprinklers on? I do when I go around,
Yeah.
but that's not that I could monitor and tell you that if they're
I
following.
just was curious if you knew. Okay.
I can answer that. Join a weekly phone call with Aquarion
Got it,
to
okay.
talk about the drought. We are in the second drought trigger. We're probably maybe in the third drought trigger by now. And Aquarion's asking for a 20% reduction in water consumption, voluntary reduction. They are out enforcing the twice-a-week irrigation. If they have to, they're going to go to a once-a-week irrigation only. Unfortunately, Darien is one of the communities, along with Greenwich, that water use is really up during this COVID time. So many more people, they must be home paying attention to their gardens or planting gardens or filling pools or whatever they're doing. So we do have a big responsibility to conserve water, for sure.
Thank you. No, thanks, Ed.
Okay, anything else for Ed?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Chief Anderson.
Good
Morning.
Good morning.
Pleasure to be with you today.
Welcome back.
I'm not sure how much of the board is watching the news for the last quarter, but obviously there's a lot going on in the world of law enforcement and public protection. The Darien Police Department, like Denny's, we didn't close. The door never got locked. We were very fortunate that our 51-member sworn staff and our 17-member civilian staff, we have no COVID-19 positives throughout the entire pandemic thus far. We had no family members with COVID-19. Surprisingly, one spouse of a civilian did have it, but the employee did not. So we were very fortunate from that regard. The officers and our staff have been very diligent. I also have to echo the comments for our maintenance staff. They have kept that building in absolute pristine condition, where no one has any concern of coming in that building and touching a surface because they're cleaned so often, both our daytime and our nighttime maintainers. So I have to give kudos to both of them. They did not stay home. They were there every scheduled day, keeping that building clean. With no disrespect to our fellow first responders, the police department in this quarter kind of went to a maintenance and visibility mode like firemen. We're not starting fires in order to put them out, or EMS are not making people sick in order to treat them. Our officers have been there, but clearly with the shutdown of the courts and the shutdown of other agencies, we have been here and we're still responding to all the calls that we are called to Motor vehicle enforcement went down. Clearly, our traffic volume went down substantially. You can see in our report that our collision rate went down. Not surprising, if we only have half the amount of cars on the road, that we would be investigating half the amount of collisions. You know, on a national scale and a statewide scale, we're in a new paradigm of law enforcement. There's no denying that. And we have been asked questions, and we have been involved in task force and groups and online meetings where we stand has been questioned. I think the Darien Police Department and the town of Darien as a whole, as a public safety aspect, we are well positioned. In large part to the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and other town boards that have, for my entire 37-year career, has supported the police department, has always said that training of officers is important, that professional standards of officers and staff is important. Because of that, I can stand here before you today and say we are above the curve. I'm sure the board has saw the 8 that can't wait and my response to those 8 requests. The Darien Police Department meets those requests, and we've met those requests for quite some time. Is there room for additional initiatives? Sure there is. And law enforcement, as in every career or any vocation, it shifts. It's not going to be locked in. We have to be able to move with the times, and I think we're well positioned to do that as well. Being that we're an accredited agency, most of those things that they're asking for across the country, we do and we have done, and it's data-driven. We can prove that we do these things. I'm very proud of the Darien Police Department. I'm proud to stand here before to represent them, and I think we are doing a fine job, and I would hope the public who's watching on TV believes that as well. You know, the bell ringing on the Saturday nights for first responders, the outpouring of food for us, and I get letters from people saying, thank you, let me drop you off. You know, I don't think we ever ate so well in my 37 years, so that was much appreciated. I will answer any questions that the board might have. It was a quiet quarter as far as activity, but we've been here. The only real thing that continues on is the unlocked cars. And we have an officer now going on to a regional task force. And let me be very candid, I've been candid with anyone on this topic. We need you to lock your cars. This is not Darien, it's not Fairfield County, it's Westchester County, it's New Haven County. It is every night. Recently, one agency here in Connecticut, yet again, got a young juvenile who they believe is responsible for 300 of these. He was referred to juvenile court in May of this year, and they believe he's responsible for at least 30 to 50 since that time that he was referred to juvenile court. And we're in a predicament here where we do catch these kids on a regular basis. Sometimes we see them, right? But the danger of the pursuit outweighs the crime that is occurring. Or sometimes they slip in and slip out. And they're continuing in every municipality across Lower Fairfield County. I think we had 45, maybe in the report, car burglaries, because they are technically a burglary, even though the car's unlocked. And I believe 44 of the 45, the cars were unlocked. So please, again, if you're watching on TV, please lock your car. It will help us greatly. That's really the only wide-scale criminal activity that continues in Darien. It's those petty larcenies where the cars may be entered and maybe nothing is even taken. So help us help you, and please lock your car. I'm willing to take any and all questions from the board at any time, here or in the future.
We really appreciate your openness, Chief, and I'm sure that I can speak for the rest of the board about how much we do support the Darien Police. Public safety is fundamental to a safe and healthy community, and that's one of the reasons why Darien is as great as it is, because of the hard work of you and your department and all that have come before you. So we are very appreciative of that, and we're watching this legislation very closely, the police accountability legislation, which I'll talk about in the Board of Selectmen meeting. Your report barely scratches the surface on some of the assistance that you give in our community beyond or in conjunction with law enforcement relating to things like domestic violence and incidents. I think it would be very interesting and helpful for the community if you might be able to work with me to put together some information about all the ways that you assist the community in things that are non-traditional police or law enforcement related activities, so that people can understand that when and if you defund the police, the other things that you're going to lose along with traditional policing.
Most people in town that have had more than a 2-minute conversation with me have heard me say that I don't want to hear any officer tell any resident or guest or visitor to the town of Darien that that's not our job, right? There may be a way to guide them to the appropriate agency to get it done, but we don't leave anyone hanging. And there are many things that we do here. First responders to medical. That is the way the town of Darien is set up, where officers are first responders to all medical calls. Now, during COVID-19, we did take a little step back. We still responded, but if we didn't have to go in because it wasn't a life-threatening emergency, we deferred to Joe and his staff to go in just to keep the amount of people treating that patient to a minimum. And many municipalities, law enforcement officers are not going to aided calls. They are going to a lot of domestic violence calls or mental crisis calls, and we're not mental health professionals, but we have, I believe, 15 or 16 officers that do have extensive training in crisis intervention management. And our general orders require that if we do get a call where we know it is a mental health type call, that one of those officers on duty will be responding to that call. And I think our officers do a very good job. We're not practitioners and we're not going to solve the ultimate issue, but I do think we're a good first step when we respond to those calls. So thank you. We do many things that are not on the typical, SVU or Blue Bloods or that type of, that is a bare minimum of what the officers, do here. We are a public service and a public safety organization wrapped into one, and I think we do a pretty good job.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to work with you on sort of packaging that in a way that would be an educational opportunity for the community.
During the demonstrations that we had over the last few months, I think if you saw me on YouTube, I didn't see me on YouTube, but people tell me that I'm on YouTube, that I am not hiding. People know where they find me if they have questions, whether it's this board, whether it's a member of the public, member of the Darien staff here, and I will give you the straight answer. You can find me, and I will certainly have a productive dialogue with you as long as you're looking to have a productive dialogue where we can talk reasonably and responsibly, even if we differ, but we can have that dialogue.
Thanks, Chief. Questions?
Just as a citizen, I'd like to say thank you, the police department and every officer to a person for each of the demonstrations that occurred. They were professional, courteous, and caring. And as a citizen, I'd just like to say thanks.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
My question goes actually to the report, and you touched upon it when you began speaking, but I just wanted to clarify. Here it said in June, you began the process of ensuring that the agency was in compliance with the post-C directive, modifying the law enforcement standards and practices. Has that process been completed? Is it ongoing? Could you just clarify that for me?
There was a CLES standard, which is a Connecticut, from the Connecticut Police Officers and Standards Council.
Okay.
They put out recommendations saying this is the way you should be in compliance. Yes, we are in compliant with that new directive, where we were doing what was in that directive already, but it wasn't specifically codified in our general orders. That policy, although it has not been signed off in our general orders for me as of yet, it is in place because an email went out department-wide saying we are abiding by this standard. And there's certainly standards that under our accreditations that we're doing already.
Okay.
It's more of a ensure that it's actually in black and white, but we are doing that, yes.
Okay, so the process has been completed, you just need to.
And I believe that we meet or exceed
Perfect.
every standard of a professional police department right now in this United States.
Perfect. And my other question is watching also the police commission meetings, that last candidate, you had several applicants. How is that going? Any update?
We interviewed, I don't know how many,
31?
maybe 20 people or 30 people. That board, which is made up of officers of the department of varying ranks, have identified well, they're sending 5 exceptional candidates forward to the police commission. They had more than 5, but the police commission will be interviewing those top 5 for that one position. I believe that's going to be next week.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
In the report, you mentioned there's a dramatic decrease in the number of traffic stops and infractions. Is that because we have less officers out watching for traffic, or is it just because there's less cars on the road?
Less cars on the road, and during a pandemic, we are not looking to have encounters if we don't have to. Though, if you made that list of the traffic stops in this quarter, you committed a flagrant violation that basically you had to be stopped.
Yeah.
Where you might have been stopped before for a taillight out, you're not going to get stopped for a
Right.
taillight out during a pandemic, simply to keep distance away from folks. And I got to be quite candid again. I think during this pandemic, and with less cars on the road, I think on the highway people were driving faster. But I think on our surface streets, our residents did a very good job of obeying the law, and the collision rate went down. And you're going to see motor vehicle enforcement ramping back up again,
Right.
because we are very responsive to neighborhood concerns about traffic, so they will be going back up. But that is why. And across the state, the courts were closed.
Yeah.
The court didn't want us sending,
Yeah.
there was nobody there to process any of these things.
Right. Good point. I'm sorry, one other question. Going on to your section with budget and overtime, can you comment at all where July looks? We saw a huge increase from May to June, actually April to May to June. Are you running it about that same rate now for July? And do you have a comment at all as to how this looks year to date?
Yeah, I think
Any
year-to-date,
sense?
we're well-positioned for overtime.
Pardon me?
I think we're well-positioned on the overtime front. In those months, training was canceled, so some training opportunities that would have been done on overtime were canceled.
Okay.
So you see that jump up in overtime. Historically, in the summertime, we do
Okay.
see some overtime because people are on vacation, and we staff our Marine Division with officers from patrol that sometimes need to be backfilled. We did have some quarantine of some people who were on calls where someone was potentially COVID-19 positive, which required some backfill. But I think all in all, being that folks weren't going on vacation because of COVID-19, I think we're going to come out ahead of the game on overtime expenditures.
Perfect, thank you.
And Kate knows I keep a pretty close eye on it, and I think, unless she tells me something different, I think we're in pretty good shape at this point.
Great, thank you.
There are a lot of unknowns, though, about that, right? There are things that come up that you have to respond to that require overtime.
We backfilled some extra positions because of beach coverage, because the beaches are potentially going to be closed. The COVID-19 testing centers every Monday and Friday were staffed by an officer. So there are overtime expenditures that I discuss with the folks here that I think are prudent expenditures and required to be done. So,
Oh, yeah, I do not mean to imply you shouldn't be doing it. I'm just curious on a budget overall picture, where are we versus the budget? And it sounds like we're in good shape.
I'm thinking we're in good shape, unless somebody tells me something different.
Hopefully, it's the first month of the budget, so
True.
we don't want to be in trouble yet. Anybody else for the chief? No. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you kindly.
Okay, I'd like to ask a point of privilege at this time. I know that Bobby and Mark have a 10 o'clock meeting, and it's 10 of 10, so Pam and Jeremy, if you can hang out for just another couple of minutes, I will then ask Bob Bush, Fire Marshal, to give his report. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. I apologize that we had to jump here, but we had a fire over the weekend on Dorchester Road, and the insurance company's fire investigator is coming today to meet with us to go over everything, so. I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
This is not the only structure fire we've had in the past 9 months or so.
So, no, we've had 3 fires within the last month.
Right.
It's been very unusual for us. We had one with a lightning strike down in Brush Island, and we had one small one prior to that. So we've been busy, the fire departments have been busy. Sunday's fire was in a non-hydrated water area, so they ended up calling in. They had all 3 departments responded to it, and we had tankers, Darien's tanker, Norton Heights' tanker, and 2 tankers from Turner River and Stanford as well. So they ran a great water operation. They never ran out of water for the fire. So everything went really well. And it was a really good save, and the owner is extremely pleased with how things turned out and was really happy that the fire department took the time to take down and preserve a lot of her artwork that she had in the house.
Good, and no one got hurt? No firefighters, no homeowners got hurt?
No,
Right.
nobody was injured.
Any other questions for Bob? No, nothing? Okay, thank you very
Okay,
much, Bob.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark McEwen. Morning.
I don't have anything further to add, other than FEMA has been constantly emailing questions regarding our reimbursement for COVID expenses.
Okay, and if I'm understanding this, 75% of the 81,000, so we're hoping that we get back 60,750-ish?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's the first set of expenses that were put in. Because this is ongoing, there's additional expenses that have not been claimed. There's a couple issues at hand, though. Some of this money that we requested can be funded by other opportunities through the government. So the CARES Act that the federal government put into place, and also some health grants that David receives. So some of the expenses may not fully be funded besides that 25%.
So if I understand the process, though, we have to apply to FEMA and those other health-related grant sources before we will be considered for reimbursement from the state CARES Act money. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is a little misconstrued as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Okay, and then I understand that expenses through the end of the calendar year 2020 will be considered. When is our next submission of expenses? At the end of August?
Actually, Jen and I are trying to get it done this month.
Okay.
One of the things I think is going to be a conflict is some of the expenses we've been putting as COVID expenses are somewhat normal expenses that we operate under, like cleaning supplies. So in my interpretation of some of the receipts I see, it's cleaning supplies we buy all year round every year. We bumped it up at the beginning of COVID, so I think we're going to have some issues with claiming some of this.
Okay.
It's hard to tell with FEMA. Their questions are very pointed, so.
Okay.
Such as even the computer expenses, so that we could talk virtually online.
Yep.
For some of our meetings and things like that may also fall to the wayside.
The one thing that I heard today is the possibility of needing additional personnel resources in the town clerk's office for the November election, which I would think could be attributed to the mail-in ballots related to COVID. So hoping that we can earmark that if we in fact are going to be hiring other people.
I would think it would be.
Questions for Mark? Sarah?
Just really quickly, you mentioned that there were PPE pickup and distribution through June. Do you have any businesses still requesting that anymore or no?
So the state actually ended the program, and it
Okay.
was a joint program with the Business Industry Association for Connecticut. I don't know if they would do it for much longer anyways, because 50% of the stuff came unclaimed.
Got it.
Locally, every town had the same experience. So people were putting in for equipment and they would not pick it up. And I can only tell you that emails went repetitively week after week after week, the same emails that they signed up with. So it's hard to believe, but I'm glad to know it wasn't just us. But we did, every week we were handing thermometers and masks out.
Is the region or the state going to consider giving municipalities the surpluses that were uncollected from the businesses so that when they do run out and they call us, that even though the state's ended the program, that they can get some?
Great question.
It's been discussed what to do with this. I was under the assumption it may get reclaimed by the state so they can keep it properly stored.
Okay.
But no one has even suggested that we keep it, and redistribute it somehow or use it ourselves.
Okay. Well, we certainly know there's going to be a huge need when the schools open, so maybe the state will think about redeploying it.
You know, and to me, it was a little awkward because we had even doctors' offices asking for materials that they would commonly have. So whether they were caught, you know, at a low point of their supplies or whatever for inventory, I don't know.
Supply chain problems, likely.
I mean, it wasn't just businesses, as we all know. For the opening, it was all kinds of places in town. There was quite a few dentist offices and also doctor offices.
Where does this excess supply reside right now?
We ordered PP for the emergency services, I want to say in May or April, once they kind of seemed to establish again, and it took us till almost July. It was the end of June that we received it. So 2.5 months, basically, it took us to get the, but now things seem to be where if I ordered PPE now, it would show up within a month. Nothing is coming right away.
I think she's talking about
No,
the unclaimed surplus.
The unclaimed.
Oh, the
Yeah,
unclaimed?
where is that? State has it somewhere?
It's stocked here, it's in our office.
Oh, okay. So you picked it up and then
So
stuff that,
basically the way it worked is the state would send it out from their main distribution point, and it would go to Westport for this region.
Right.
We would go pick it up, bring it back to town. We would notify each and every person that ordered equipment, and then they would come here and pick it up.
Okay, so currently we are in possession of all of that that was allocated to the town of Darien, independent of what was actually picked up or distributed to our
And it's the
businesses.
first time this has ever been done in all the years I've been emergency management director. It had some bumps in the road. We had businesses that people lived in Darien, but their businesses are elsewhere, and vice versa. So some of this stuff was going to Greenwich, Westport. It was not a smooth process.
No, I can imagine.
And then you had people who own multiple businesses all over the place and were trying to claim it in one location, but everything was shipped to the business address, or for the town that the business address was. So we had people come, "Where's my 8 thermometers?" I'm like, "I only have one for you, I'm sorry."
Right.
It was not smooth by any means. But they're learning from it. I mean, that's the good.
the businesses were grateful for it too, those that picked it up.
Everybody I talked to was great.
Sure, yeah.
Everybody who picked stuff up was really wonderful.
Anything else for Mark?
I'm sorry, your last, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'd just like to understand the acronyms in your last bullet point about what is upcoming and continuing. I don't understand all those wonderful letters.
That was my question. Same question.
Okay, where are we?
On the
Very
back,
last
yeah,
line.
HSGP,
MOA.
Oh, Homeland Security Grant Program. So every year, the federal government used to give money to the local communities for terrorism, et cetera, natural disasters. And that dried up in 2007, and the money now goes to the region. So our Region 1, which is Fairfield County, essentially, gets the pool of money, and then we all operate as a committee to spend that money. So that's the appropriation for 2020, federal fiscal year, not Darien's fiscal year. We see no money out of that. We may occasionally, they buy equipment or whatever, and it will get distributed throughout the communities as regional assets. We have quite a few here. 2 variable message signs, for instance, and also a shelter trailer is hosted in Darien. Then we have the Bearcat, which the Darien Police Department houses. That's also a regional asset, but that's the only one for the whole region, so it gets used regionally, if that helps explain it a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
no, that was my question.
Sorry about the acronyms, we're full of them.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Okay, Jeremy, thanks for your patience.
Just wanted to bring up a few points of emphasis from my report. You'll see in the first paragraph, the Planning and Zoning Commission did not cancel one meeting during the quarter.
It's awesome.
They met pretty much weekly into the wee hours many times. They had a lot of pending work. Obviously, the Oxford School was very important to get that done in a timely manner. They met 3 nights on Oxford School. They approved the project in June. The other project, which I wanted to mention, that went through the P&Z process this quarter upgrades and kind of the end of an era for the Darien Playhouse. The theater is no more. They're going to turn that space into first floor commercial space and upstairs apartments. Just want to give you an idea of what's coming. You may get questions from many of your constituents. This is the back area. A lot of points of emphasis on the back. The new businesses will be in the back. Better pedestrian areas, benches, plantings, landscaping.
Looks lovely.
So this also shows a little bit about the activity back there. It really is an opportunity for us to make better use of the space, and you'll see that construction has already begun. Lastly, the office spent a lot of time on getting outdoor activity, restaurants, retail, drive-in movies, outdoor exercise areas. All that's been gone through our office, working with other departments, building, fire, health, to make sure it's all done safely and properly. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, really appreciate the quick turnaround time in assisting our local businesses. It's been fundamental to helping them stay afloat.
Exactly.
Who got approved for a drive-in movie? I know there's been several different groups that are considering it.
Giovanni's got approved. I understand they're running a drive-in next week at Giovanni's. We have a couple pending requests, one for Good Wives Shopping Center, the town. I think Pam and her crew are thinking of having one. We've gotten other requests or preliminary requests. Nothing has come through yet. David Genovese, I think, is going to do one in a parking lot. I think he's doing a series of 3, if I recall.
I'd like to do 3.
Yeah, so there are a number of them that have been approved and a couple more in the pipeline.
Questions for Jeremy?
Yeah,
Sarah?
can you give us an update on how things are going in the Norotan Heights area? There's a few projects here. Are some on hold? Are some moving forward?
Well, one thing we have to remember, we're in the middle of a global pandemic.
Yep.
So while it's nice that the theater project's moving along, and you can see in my report, lots of people are getting permits, lots of people want to expand their houses and put in pools, we're still in the middle of a global pandemic. And while Federal Realty is moving along and other people are put their projects on hold, Norotan Heights Shopping Center is kind of not moving as fast as Federal Realty. Let's put it that way. And I've spoken to Mr. Palmer numerous times, but I think people have to be a little patient with understanding.
Of course, yeah.
And I think we're going to have to be a little understanding of the situation.
Of course. So does Federal seem to be moving along on their timeline that they had predicted, or mostly?
I think it's too early to tell. Keep in mind that's a 3-year construction project. Getting that stormwater management system in was super important.
Yep.
That's moving along. Step 1 for that project is the new Walgreens, which they hope to have open fall of next year.
Got it.
Kip?
I would just like to say from the Oxridge Building Committee, a big thank you to Jeremy for providing exceptional professional guidance as we work through our various permitting processes. I'm glad that we were able to end up with a approved planning and zoning permit as well, but Jeremy provided countless hours of expert professional advice in guiding us through the process, and I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Agreed. Anything else for Jeremy? No. Thank you so much, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay, Pam, thank you so much for your patience.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'd just like to add a few things on a positive note. You may not know, but I am the chair of a leadership development network. It's a national platform. We've been extremely busy coming into this pandemic. And with that network, I was chosen to speak as a panelist on a new show that they're doing nationally called Good News in Parks. And I get to highlight the town of Darien, which is pretty darn cool. So this airs on Thursday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. I will send out a link so that the town is aware. I was a little bashful about it, but now at this point, it's just really, it would be nice to show Darien and all the things that we have and all the challenges that we've gotten through along the way, but what a great, wonderful town it is. So I'm pretty proud of that. I do want to say publicly to anybody watching here how thankful I am for Jamie, your leadership, Kate, how much she's helping me through this, and especially even Lori Bora, the chairman of Parks and Rec. It has been countless hours, and to think that I had them at my side, you know, really 7 days a week when I needed advice or I needed guidance. I can't thank you enough, because otherwise you feel like you're swimming alone in this when you really need. And even while I sat on this platform nationally, that's what was happening. Everyone, at one point we had a Zoom call with over 500 callers on it. It was pages and pages of people on Zoom looking for guidance, and that was what was really neat to be part of this network, because it really was about coming up with subjects that our colleagues were all looking for information through this whole thing. So that was a real educational side. And also Jamie Gore, who works for us, the program supervisor that we all know and love, she's the co-chair, so she'll be stepping into my role come early fall, which is a really good thing for her as well to stay involved with that. So thank you very much. I'm certain that we will continue throughout the summer. It's been very busy, it's been very challenging, so the support is well needed. And if you have any questions, be happy to answer.
So I know the report is as of May 7th. What are the major changes, for example, with the beaches? I know in this it says there's no daily passes, but when did that change? What was the date that the daily passes started being sold at the beaches?
When did it start being sold? I believe we had a commission meeting in June, and at that point, a decision wasn't made to not sell them. So we had to go back to our regular rules.
Got it.
And so we did, but therefore, even going back to regular rules, we had made a decision behind the scenes, an executive decision to limit them because we were concerned about overcapacity. Today, we've also made an executive decision in these past 2 weekends not to sell any.
Yeah.
Due to the excessive heat, concerns. We're watching our neighbors and what they're doing. Of course, that became news this past week. So we will continue, I will continue working with Lori and Jamie and Kate as to how we would like to continue to move forward. As the commission only meets once a month.
Right.
So as things rapidly change, and the weather, and so far we've been handling it, I think, quite well, but there's different perspective when you enter the beach, different people's perspective. I was there all weekend. It was extremely busy, but people were spaced out nicely. It's perhaps people see a cluster of kids. They're hanging together, and it's a very difficult thing to change. They're their friends and they're gathering, but yet the groups on the beaches really are our concern. People have emailed and said no one's wearing masks. They're distant, right? So people see them around their necks, or they carry them as I am, and when they get in a position where they can't be, we're reminding people to wear them.
Just one more question. I know that you had hired a security firm to manage kind of the gates for the beaches. How is that going? Would you foresee using that again next year? Do you feel like it was just for this year with the pandemic?
Well, we always have security guards at the gates. Right. So we have 2 new positions, which are patrolling monitors, we've been calling them. I personally feel it's been going terrific. I think we've gotten very good feedback with it. I know the chair of our commission would like to see these positions stay. They are our eyes and ears when we can't be there. We get a solid report daily that I send out to Jamie, Kate, and Lori, so that we're all in tune as to what this person is. These people, we have 2 during the weekends, we have 1 during the week. They travel throughout the different parks, the different trails. Obviously, when a weekend comes, most of their attention is put on the beaches.
Right.
But I think they're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
So I'll continue on that conversation. Do you envision these positions ending at Labor Day, or how long For how long do you expect to be employing these individuals?
It's a good question. It's a
Or
good
do you have
question.
any sense? I mean,
I would assume definitely through Labor Day. I think that's a discussion to be had with the commission.
okay, fair
How
enough.
long we foresee them staying on. Typically, the guards themselves at Pear Tree typically end on Labor Day, and Weed Beach typically goes three weeks further into October because it's a busier beach. We got the playground, we got the tennis courts, we got the paddle lessons. I mean, so typically they stay on later, but there has been discussion in the past, even before this pandemic, as to why they start and end at different times, and shouldn't they be more consistent together?
Thank you. Okay, I guess the commission will opine on that, and we'll see where we are at Labor Day. Going back to the capacity at the beaches, can you speak briefly about the parking lot situation versus capacity? And more to my question, if the parking lot is filled, do you have any sense, does that meet your current capacity limits at the beach? Or does that still leave room for walk-ins? I'm just trying to get an understanding of the variable between the parking being filled and capacity limitations.
Sure.
Can you?
We've monitored it, so we
Oh,
know
yeah.
there's two different things that are happening here. As you said, we have regulation spaces. When they're filled, we will not allow any more vehicles in, and that did happen to us already. It occurred on Sunday, July 5th, for an hour, where the parking lot filled, we had to turn away some vehicles. However, that didn't mean we were limiting the amount of people coming in, walking across from the neighborhood, or wherever they were walking from. That's a revolving door at Weed Beach and Pear Tree. People are walking, they're jogging, they're riding their bikes. There's no way for us to determine where they're coming from, but they're coming in and out. So the other scenario is that if the monitors at that point on the beaches, which they walk up and down every half hour or so, determine that there's not enough space on the beach, we will stop the flow of traffic at the gate from walkers. We won't allow anybody in at that time. It has not happened yet.
Okay, so suffice to say, but to clarify, that the parking can be filled, but that does not mean the beach is at capacity.
Exactly right. It's a big park, and not everybody's on the sand. We have playground activity, we have picnic activity, we have kayak activity, we have people that are kind of going up in the hills, we have tennis.
Right.
I mean, it is very active.
And then is the parking lot meaning every spot, or are we at a 50% for parking?
We never went to 50% capacity. We stayed at our regulation spaces.
Okay.
So we're not overflow parking as we have typically done in the past. That was where we cut back.
Oh, interesting.
We're not
Okay.
letting people park along the tennis courts, along some area. These are regulation spaces, and when they're filled,
They're filled, right? Okay,
Correct.
thank you so much for clarifying that. Thank you.
Do we have a sense of capacity as to how many people are using the beaches this year versus last year? Is it a dramatic increase? Is it not?
it's a dramatic increase.
Is it? Okay.
It's a dramatic increase. Yes, and I think that people are staying, they're here, they're not traveling. The majority of our traffic, best guess estimate, are residents.
Yeah.
They're enjoying the beaches, and they're concerned about their beaches, and they're concerned about walk-ins, for sure. But it's very hard for us to determine where they're coming from, because there's so much traffic.
Yeah.
Now, yes, Henley has been a subject of concern. I can tell you, there's been no report of more than 20 cars. Now, where those people in those cars went, were some walking to the beach? Perhaps. But there were people meet there to go biking. There's a summer camp there now. So I went there on Saturday and Sunday, and there were 12 cars in the lot, and 3 of which had beach stickers on them. So again, can I tell you that all 12 of those cars went to Weed Beach? No. So, but we're still trying to work through what's the best way to handle this. What's the best way? And perhaps we will move toward what Fairfield does. I don't know. But we are still discussing all those things behind the scenes about how we can handle it the best way.
Anything else, David?
Yeah, I noticed that Rory's was offering food.
Yes.
at Weed Beach. So could you just sort of fill us in, because there have been some talk about the lease there and those other things, so just How did that work?
Sure.
What are we doing there?
Amongst everything else, once everything opened, the only thing that wasn't opened was the concession stands. And I did work with the current vendor, Uncle's, who's been forever the vendor here in town, and he was willing to get in there. Was a lot to do. There was cleaning to do. There was a lot of things to do before he would even be able to open. Unfortunately, he had an accident. He wasn't able to vend. So I moved on and said that let's see if I can get somebody from the town. Rory's and Jennifer's Kitchen has been very good to Parks and Recreation when it came to our events, and they've been more than willing to help us out in terms of our Weed Beach fence. So I reached out to them first, and they were really excited about the opportunity. And we worked with the health department on the menus and the situation with the concession stand. They are not vending inside the concession stand. The concession stand had too much work in order to be ready for such a, yeah. So they are using the hand washing station, they're using refrigeration and the freezer, but that's only to bring it outside. So they are set up under the overhang, and they have their grill, and it was really successful, super successful. People were really happy about it. I think Rory's did well, and Jennifer's Kitchen's gonna be starting with him this weekend. In the meantime, I will be reaching out to others to see if I can fill the space at Pear Tree in the same capacity. So it's just a new way of thinking and trying to see what, and I think people were really excited. In the same breath, I also did a beach concession survey during this time, which right now, I didn't look at it today, but over the weekend there was just under 1,000 respondents, which clearly showed that people want concessions. So that's number one. Outside of other things we'll tease out of that. I also met with the beach concession consultants this past weekend. And they also nailed it with a great weekend, because not only had they come the week before and we had no concessions and less people, we hit it during extreme heat wave where there were a lot of people and the concession was busy. So they're able to really analyze our Weed Beach, our Pear Tree, McGuan concession as well, because they had some baseball going on there as well. So we put all three of those in what will be one report that will help us analyze going forward what the needs of the community are, and how we have a successful operation.
Do you know when you expect that study to be completed? About?
I would say in a few weeks, and then he also will be joining our Parks and Recreation Commission by way of Zoom to get his firsthand feedback on what he saw and what he thinks is the potential here with those facilities. And I think it may be even a couple of those. I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation going forward.
Look forward to watching that.
Any other?
I have a very, very important question. Now, the Diller Park property, running path, what is the invasive weeds that are so problematic?
I haven't necessarily firsthand have seen them.
What is it, poison ivy?
No, they're typical, I wonder if you could speak to that. But they're weeds similar to the ones that we have at Pear Tree right now. I mean, Weed Beach, down in the lower section that we actually got rid of last year or the year before, and they're all back again. You cut them down, they come back. I mean, there's a specific way of getting rid of them. And what's happening right now at Diller is that the Darien Athletic Foundation, in regards to their special permit with P&Z, it was under the agreement that they would handle those weeds and get rid of them. But they're finding that it's such a large project that they really need to think differently about how they get rid of them. So
I'm excited about what they're thinking.
Yes,
I got a
shall I say
communication.
it?
Please, go ahead.
So what they're thinking is that instead of bringing heavy equipment, expensive heavy equipment to try to tackle this, they are looking at a local farm to bring in goats and sheep to eat them.
Which is happening everywhere.
Right,
Happening
sustainable,
in Brooklyn.
sustainable, right.
Wow.
So we are, I love the idea. I think it's a great way of thinking outside the box And so we are in the beginning stages of communicating about how that will get done.
Great, thank Sarah.
One last one. I know everyone's using our parks. We're here, we're home. We had some questions about the basketball court at Cherry Lawn. Do we have a kind of a time frame as to what that may be finished?
I can tell you that there's just doesn't seem to be enough hours in the day.
Of course, I'm sure.
It is
yeah.
on my agenda.
I'm sure, yeah.
It just hasn't fallen to the very top priority.
Got it.
An RFP has to be written.
Right.
I have to write it, then I have to send it through Kate,
Yep.
and it get approved by Jamie.
Yep.
There's a lot to do about that. I wish it was simpler. It's not.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So I do have some pressure from some residents for me to get that done.
Yes.
And all I can tell you is it's on my agenda. It's on my list of priorities. It's not the first.
Of course.
It does make sense, though, to be doing that work at a time when the park isn't as busy.
Yes.
So,
It's true.
okay. Anything else for Pam? Okay, thank you so much, Pam.
Thank you so much, Pam. Thank you.
Congratulations on
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah, exactly. We'll look, tune in.
So I guess what I'm going to say here is we need to, like, move on. Move on, because we have a Board of Selectmen meeting, and sadly, I have an 11 o'clock other meeting, too, so
Oh, and
David,
now we
come on
have
up.
yeah, with all the information.
Yep.
Good morning and thank you.
Good morning.
If you don't mind, I'd like to take this opportunity also to address the community directly. As they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I encourage everyone to go to the town website, in particular focus on the COVID section. And on the COVID section, there's a report that deals with weekly reports of illness. And that's an important chart to look at because you can see in that chart that in March and early May, we had quite a spike here in town and across Connecticut. We've been very successful through measures that we've taken in the interim to address that high peak that we saw at that time. Instrumental in that has been the use of wearing masks and practicing social distancing. At this point, we're witnessing perhaps an increase again in cases. There's concern about cases occurring again, and likely because people have dispensed with wearing masks when they're getting together. There's more social gatherings, there's parties, a lot of get-togethers are occurring, as well as traveling from states that are having very high case counts coming back to Connecticut. And at 10:30, thank you for allowing me to go first, because at 10:30, local health directors are going to learn what the impacts are for the governor's new mandated quarantine for people returning from the 22 states, 22 now, but 22 states coming back to Connecticut. It's mandatory quarantine for 14 days, subject to, if they don't quarantine, a $1,000 fine. At this point, I'm not sure whether or not and who is going to be enforcing that. I'm hoping, could it possibly be the local health department? I don't know. We'll find that out at 10:30 or so. The other item on that chart that you need to take a look at on the webpage is the case count by age. That bar chart is starting to change. Initially, we were seeing the primary people being affected by illness being those who were older, 50 and older. Now we're starting to see younger teenagers and 20-year-olds are starting to have increased caseloads. I think that there's been a lot of community concern recently about a party that has held. There's a lot of discussion. I've been called and contacted by several different people about the impacts of a recent gathering of a large group of youngsters. We get reports from the state on a daily basis that we post on the website. We get a daily report and we do a weekly summary. I can tell you that as of this morning, before I came into this meeting, we have not been notified of any positive cases associated with that alleged party.
Yep.
Doesn't mean that it won't happen
Yep.
within the next day or so, but we have not yet been notified officially of that. Everyone needs to pay attention to social distancing and mask wearing, because it's very clear this virus is not going away on its own. When we were careful towards the end of March and through April, we pushed the rates way down. Let's not give up that momentum that we established at that time. Let's be smart. This wearing a mask is not a terrible infringement on anyone's rights. And in fact, what it does, it not only protects you as the wearer, but it protects those around you. So let's not be selfish and just say, I'm not wearing a mask, just as a matter of principle. Let's wear a mask, let's protect ourselves, our families, and those around us. With that, I would like to get to that meeting at 10:30. I'll take any questions about my report or the COVID issue.
David, I know we've had a lot of refinement of the data that we put on the town website. I wonder if it's worth considering adding into the daily chart ages.
Absolutely, and I was thinking
So
the same
people
thing.
can see if, evidencing the shift that you and I are both understanding that's happening.
We can easily add a column and add as much data as needed. And the other question I'd like to ask the board is if they would like copies of that as part of sending it out to being posted on the website, so you get direct
Yeah, yes, please.
information from our office.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for David?
When does the weekly information come from the state? Does that come on Thursdays?
We assemble that on Thursday. So the
So you just
state
take
the state provides the information on a daily basis. We summarize it and post it on a weekly basis, just because it's the easiest way to kind of identify trends.
Okay, I was just thinking with the Friday being off and we had a little bit of a glitch this week, is Thursday really the best day? Should we make it Monday to?
Well, Monday, because the state's not reporting on the weekends,
Right.
I don't think Monday would be a good day. I think that, we could choose a day. I don't know which day would be the best, but Thursday is just, we're summarizing our week as we go into our weekend.
If
I
the
don't think there's-
information comes too late, then we're now 3 days behind on the update. So it looks like it's a week.
Either way, we're going to be. I'm open to suggestions.
I just felt the delay on Thursday, which is understandable. I mean, people have things to do in the state. You're waiting for the state data, that as of Thursday, we still had the information from the prior week. So I've just perhaps reevaluate whether Thursday's the best day to pick, given the fact that we're out on Friday.
If we're doing a weekly summary,
Correct.
the weekly summary is still going to be a week old by the time it's posted.
No, it was 2 weeks old, because you
No,
didn't
well-
get Thursday's weekend.
No, you have to aggregate the weekly. If you look at the weekly summary and then you aggregate the daily summary.
You can
then-
go in by day, but
Yeah.
that weekly said as effective July 9th, I believe was the date, because the Thursday didn't get updated, because the state got the data late and we were out Friday.
No, it
So-
wasn't the state. It was our fault.
Okay,
And so, and that
I don't
was a
wanna- it's not
one-off.
fault. I'm
That was
just-
that was a one-time thing. We were having trouble with our rectifying the data, because
Okay,
the state
yeah.
data shifts. So if we were reporting on a Wednesday, we still would have had that problem, because there was some misreporting. It's a constant struggle with that. So any day, if you're right, it happened that it didn't get posted for a while, but that was the one time that
Okay,
happened.
fair enough, just that you're doing it the day before, you're gone for 3 days. So I'm just thinking, is that the best day? But I made my comment.
I don't.
My other question regarding the outreach and the tracing, we hear a lot about that on the national level. 80% success rate in reaching, which is fantastic. The other 20%, how is that going? Is there any stick? We look at carrot and stick approaches. Is there any stick for the other 20%?
Well, our ability to reach out is dependent on time, how many times you're going to try. We're dependent on getting adequate and accurate information from the state with respect to phone numbers, emails, or contact information in general. I know other jurisdictions who have not. I think 80% is probably one of the highest rates of return for departments statewide. I'm pretty pleased with that. But, it's others have tried sending letters, contacting people directly, through mail. So carrot and stick, 80% is pretty good. And with the contact tracing, it's another complication to it. That broadens the number of people that we would be contacting and reaching out to probably exponentially. You know, so, and with that contact tracing thing, it's voluntary. So first of all, the person who tests positive doesn't have to tell us who they've been in touch with or in contact with. They might, and then the person that we contact might not want to participate in the program, might not want to tell us, and they can opt out. So there's a lot of outreach, a lot of attempts. What we found is certain times of the day are better than others for reaching out to people. A lot of people don't want to answer phone calls from unknown sources. You know, they see a number come up and, you know, it could be, you know, a fishing expedition, so they don't answer the phone. So a lot of people just don't want to answer their phones from an unknown source. Part of the state program that they're working on is to have the caller ID show up contact tracing, so that if you receive a phone call and it's not going to show a number, it's just going to show Connecticut contact tracing, which might in itself have people not want to answer the phone,
Right.
you know, depending on how they feel about that whole disclosure and privacy issue, which is substantial,
Right.
you know, realistically. So it's, you know, there's a lot of unknowns, and we're in a lot of uncharted territory here. Oh, and by the way, we have given out tons of PPE to our local healthcare providers, and we're still receiving it. We get it on Mondays, and we dispense it on Thursdays to our local healthcare providers, and encouraging them at the same time to place their own orders, because this is not going to continue forever.
Great. Thank you, and thank you for all your hard work during the
That was a
pandemic.
lot.
It's been
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Okay, we have Beth Paris. Morning.
Good to see everybody.
You too.
Full face. My report stands if there's any questions. We are in the process of developing a virtual senior center since we have the highest risk group. We are in contact with our Southwest Area Agency on Aging, and all 14 senior center directors are meeting every single week to look at the CDC recommendations and also to start to determine whether there's a way that we can do some service in-house based on reservations and need. So, be happy to answer any questions. It's been a daunting quarter, to say the least. We have taken over the lunch program, just to let you know it's doing very well. Our chef is back. Our staff came back on the 29th of June. And happily, we're averaging about 40 people a day that are still participating in that program. And as we get more information out about that, I think more and more people are going to participate. Right now, we're serving Darien residents exclusively, so.
We really have to thank Corbin Cares for the incredible job they did feeding our seniors and our families in need for a couple of months. And also to publicly acknowledge Marcy Rand leaving the organization for a great opportunity with our competitors up in New Canaan, but we're excited for her, and we'll be eager to see who will be taking her place.
Yes, we have a very good and vigorous response, and about 32 folks. We're going to be seeing 10 of them next week through Zoom, and then the lucky finalists 3 to 5 in social distancing and masked in the weeks to come. So it's a great place to work. So I think we'll get a tremendous candidate again with a wonderful passion for this, and also a work ethic that rivals mine. That's what I'm voting for right now. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Beth? Okay, thank you, Beth. Okay, I see George today for IT. Morning, George.
Hello, George.
How you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Well, things are going well with the computers. Obviously, it's fortunate the virus doesn't affect our computers like the viruses normally do.
Not that kind of virus.
So it's been good. You know, remote learning, remote teaching, remote there's always been going on through the school system, also with us, in respect to getting all of the other users, all the department heads, I guess operational in respect to their remote utilities. So that's going well also. I mean, if you guys have anything, questions on the report that we submitted.
Questions for George?
I know we're pushed for time.
No?
Looks like you've done a good job with the remote work.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been fortunate so far, you know.
Yeah, we want to thank you
Changes
very
daily.
much
Yes.
for all of your triage as we transition
okay,
to
it's
our
been good.
virtual life.
Well, the guys I'm working with are phenomenal, so it works out well.
Thank you very much.
Okay?
Thank you.
Good to see you guys,
Thank
okay?
you, George.
Bye-bye.
Ally Ramstick. Morning, Ally.
I just wanted to take a moment to recognize the Darien community and how extraordinary they've been over the last 4 to 5 months. The generosity, compassion has been astounding. So we're very fortunate to live in such a wonderful community. And have any questions for me?
Thank you for all that you've done.
Happy to.
And always with a smile. And I want to thank you for taking on the new role as our Demis Region 1 representative for Darien to their long-term recovery committee. There's several of those committees that are happening region-wide, and we very much appreciate you stepping into that role because you have your fingers on the pulse of what the real needs are here in Darien. So thank you. I don't know if you've met yet at all.
No, we have not. But welcome the opportunity.
I just have one question for the benefit of any public that might be watching. If there are other members of the public that have not yet participated with you that would like to provide support to you, what is it that you need the most?
Right now, I am anxiously awaiting the possibility of the extension of the pandemic unemployment benefits, which I think it runs out this week. I'm very nervous of what might happen to the clients that we work with because most of the people that we've been helping we have had some new families, not a tremendous amount, but these are people that were hanging on by a thread to begin with. And the unemployment benefits have been helpful. So monetary donations are always welcome. Gift cards for grocery stores, those are the main things. As I've said in my report, food insecurity is something that we focus on, and not just us, but we want to make sure that that is not an issue for any of our residents. So anyone who's willing to donate, we welcome and we appreciate it. Is that what you mean?
Tell me how do I make
How
the
to do it?
donation?
You can either call us if you're outside. People call us out front if they have donations that they want to provide. We will run out to their car, they stay in their car, or you can mail donations. You can mail them to Darien Human Services. Checks can be made out to Darien Human Services. Gift cards can be mailed. We're still getting them on a weekly basis.
So I'd like to check out the Darien Human Services and send
Yes,
it in.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Ally, have we exhausted the funding that is being collected at the Darien Community Fund?
No, we still have plenty of money. I think at the very beginning of the pandemic, the community rallied and the community fund was able to raise a tremendous amount of money. Thankfully, we've helped, I think it's 26 partial rent payments since March. We anticipated there might have been a whole surge of them at the beginning, but again, back to the pandemic benefits, I think that people have been okay. Getting the extra $2,400 a month is substantial for people who are low to moderate income. So no, I think financially we are okay for now, but we shall see.
Any other questions for Ally?
No.
Thank you for incredible work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Okay, Jen Charneski, Finance.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Jen.
I have nothing to add to my report, but I will answer any questions you may have.
The only question I had, Jen, was it looks like we have accounted for thus far $319,000 in COVID-related expenses.
Yes.
At some point, could we maybe get a report on that?
Sure. What I've been doing is tracking invoice by invoice. So you can have that level of detail, or when it gets submitted to the state, it's being categorized cleaning supplies, legal, miscellaneous. So I could, after I enter it in there, I can run the report and you can see it by category.
That would be great. Any other questions for Jen?
I'll just say, I have a couple. in my ongoing effort to educate myself, but perhaps in the interest of time, I'll just shoot you an email and copy the board so that everybody can see what the responses are. It's more about some of the charts in the back.
All right.
Kip?
Just a quick question. On the notes of the financial information, you say that revenues are exceed expenditures by about 4.9 million, yet at the end of the year, we expect the final results to be minimal increase if unbalanced.
A lot of it is timing. One of the main items that two significant items on the expense side that we haven't done are tying out to the Board of Education. So they expect to turn back to the general fund roughly $520,000, but that's not yet all reconciled and booked into our system. So then the 4 million difference that you see is really just what's booked in Munis right now. And the other significant item is the general fund transfer to the reserve for capital non-recurring expenses. Just waiting for June interest to be booked so we know exactly what needs to move over to fully fund the appropriation.
System.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kip. Anything else for Jen? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Pete Solheim.
Good morning.
Good morning, Pete.
As you can see, COVID has wreaked pretty much havoc with the construction that's been going on in Darien. It's slowed it down considerably, but I don't want you to think that this department is still not active. Just as a comparison, this time compared to last year for the quarter we did 741 inspections. This quarter we did 643 inspections. So our inspection activity is still brisk. For the 6-month period, last year we did 1,639 inspections, and this year so far we did 1,443 inspections. So we're still active with our inspections. Even with the staggered schedule, even with COVID, we haven't refused any inspections, even though I told my inspection staff if they felt uncomfortable with going out on an inspection, they weren't required to, but so far no inspections have been refused, and we've been keeping the building community active. Glad to field any questions if you have any.
Questions for Pete? No, we know you're
ready.
It's just an anomaly. We know that it's
Okay.
happening right now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pete.
Thank you.
And Tony Homicki.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My report speaks for itself. I want to compliment the Board of Assessment Appeals in March, Rick Dolcetti, Chris Peters, and R.J. Luth. They delivered and got the job done when it was definitely crisis management. Working remotely was by far a challenge. Compliment to George and James. Working remotely and having our phones relayed over, especially with the senior citizens, and working on that program is quite a compliment too. And then, of course, the work that Kate and Jamie's been doing. It's been good, so I welcome any other questions, and it's good to be last.
Any questions for Tony?
No, thank you.
Great.
No.
Thank
Okay.
you all.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Tony. And Lori Dunn is not here today, but you have her report. She's been incredibly busy working with Kate and others on HR policy during COVID. Okay, so that ends our quarterly department heads meeting. Oh, thank goodness, okay.
You have an 11 o'clock, Amy?
Yeah, guess I'm not gonna make that. Okay, I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have a flag?
I don't know the way.
Wait,
I thought we did.
Where's the flag? Okay, well, in light of no flag, we can do the pledge and we can look to the flag that's out front. How about that? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, presentation, update on pedestrian improvements in Darien. Do we have staff joining us, Kate?
No, unfortunately, because the staff meeting with department heads was running so long, Jeremy was not able to stay.
Okay.
We can schedule that tomorrow.
Okay, that's fine. I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure everyone else is too. Okay, first Selectmen's report, a couple of things. Brief legislative update. Today begins the legislature's special session. There will be 4 issues that will be debated during this special session. Last Friday, the Judiciary Committee held an online listening session to receive comments on the working draft of LOC 3471, otherwise known as an Act Concerning Police Accountability. The most challenging piece of this proposed legislation is to eliminate qualified immunity, which will, according to the Connecticut Police Chiefs Association, destroy department's ability to recruit, hire, and retain qualified officers immediately and ongoing upon adoption for the foreseeable future. Liability insurance is costly. It would cost officers 20% of the average of their first year's salary. And the risk of losing their personal assets is a significant disincentive to becoming an officer. Qualified immunity protects police officers and other government officials, like us actually, from civil lawsuits unless the official violated clearly established statutory and constitutional rights of which a reasonable person would have known. So the argument from the law enforcement community and the Chiefs Association is that there are well-established laws in place that should allow for incidents like what happened in Minneapolis to be able to facilitate the removal of bad police officers. Also today at 2 o'clock, there'll be an online public listening session on absentee ballot voting, telehealth coverage, and the capping of insulin costs. It's those 4 issues: police accountability, telehealth, absentee balloting, and insulin costs that are the subject of this special session. There is another initiative that is a very progressive zoning and land use reform proposal being presented by Desegregate Connecticut and the Senate Democratic Caucus that will not be taken up during this special session in July, but may be part of the special session that some are thinking will be called for the month of September. That decision has not yet been made by the governor. Either way, those housing land use proposals will come either in another special session or likely in the upcoming regular session of the legislature. As of today, we have 218 total cases of COVID-19 in Darien. But as you heard from our health director, based on communications from many folks in town, we anticipate positive case numbers to rise as we're hearing about groups of younger people, teens and early 20s, who have tested positive after some group gatherings. Continued diligence is necessary if we want to keep the virus at bay here in Darien. A return to in-person school is highly dependent on the status of new positive cases, both locally and statewide, as we approach the planned opening of school. And regarding schools, the Darien Public Schools has to submit their 3 different plans for school reopening to the State Department of Education by this Friday, July 24th. The Chamber of Commerce is holding a modified version of sidewalk sales. It won't be on the sidewalk at all, actually. It's called Darien Summer Sales, and it will run from August 3rd to August 9th, in stores only, so that all of the environment can be controlled. People must wear masks and distance themselves while they're doing shopping and looking for those bargains that will be offered inside rather than outside this year. Want to thank again the Darien Foundation for their very generous gift to TV 79, which has enabled us to upgrade the cameras and the servers and a new Castus system, which can offer hundreds of programs on the platform, which is an excellent upgrade to TV 79. So thank you very much for your generous donation. As a member of KERMA, because KERMA is member-owned and member-managed, when they have good financial years, which we've had amazing, exceptionally good performance in the last couple of years, I'm happy to report as the chairman. Each year we get a members distribution because they've done so well. So this year we anticipate receiving $36,600 as our proportional portion of the members' equity distribution. We heard from Pam about beach policies. We've all received complaints about, from some people about concerns over overcrowding at the beaches. This past weekend, Norwalk and Fairfield banned out-of-town patrons. While it is legal under COVID-19 emergency orders to take that action of disallowing out-of-town patrons, we have to be mindful that we don't break the law in any way. So I did see some things online just yesterday about concerns over the actions taken by Norwalk. So I appreciate the very thoughtful way that the Parks and Rec Commission is making their decisions. And please help conserve water. We're in a drought, and we need to stick to the 2 days a week irrigation and do other measures which you can find online about how to conserve water in your home. Okay, that's it for me. Kate?
Just quickly, we've been seeing an increase in people who indicate a desire to use town facilities or parks for their events, and we love that. I think it's terrific that people want to use them. But, and I think we can always accommodate them, but sometimes people think that because it's public property, that they just plan their event for space, and they really should reach out to the Parks and Recreation, if it's a town facility such as the town hall grounds, they should reach out to us, just to coordinate to make sure that we are planning to maintain the parking lot the day you want to have your event in town hall, or that there's not something else already planned at Tilly Park the day you want to have your event. And you don't want to be planning a wedding there and find out that the Darien Snare Drummers Association is having a wedding. You know, so just reach out to us. We'd love to be able to, love having people use the parks, but we want to make sure your event goes nicely, so please call. And we are still working on when we will reopen town hall fully to the public. We do not expect to do that before the state implements phase 3, but our concern will be foremost the employee safety and the public safety. So we're not going to do it before we feel we can do it safely. That's it.
Is it okay if we use the microphone? I can't hear what Teague's saying.
Well, I'm done, so.
Well, perhaps. Okay, thank you, Kate. Okay, reports from anyone serving as a liaison to other boards or commissions. Anybody have anything to report today?
I distributed mine this morning, so to save a couple minutes, we'll,
Oh, did I get that?
it's in your email box, it wasn't, that's not that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, great, thank you. We'll attach that to the minutes.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
why I sent it
great,
to you.
perfect,
It'd be
all right.
easier that way.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, new business, discuss and take action on a request to accept a gift of a ballistic vest for K9 Argo. I think the memo is fairly self-explanatory. This vest is valued at $1,500. K9 Kenny already has a ballistic vest. Does anybody have any questions for Kate about the gift of the vest?
That's great.
The gift is coming from the Brady's K9 Fund, which is a really wonderful nonprofit started by a young boy, Brady Snakowski. He's a 10-year-old in 4th grade, and he started this nonprofit, and he's the CEO of his nonprofit, and his mom is the COO, which I think is awesome.
Love it.
So, any questions? If not, then we have a motion in our packet, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a gift to the Darien Police Department of a gift valued at approximately $1,500 from Brady's K9 Fund to the town of Darien. So I'll entertain a motion to approve this resolution. David, may I have a second? Sarah? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Okay. Parking Authority. Discuss and take action on a proposed lease with Metro North. This is sort of the second coming of a proposal to use a different parking lot for Metro North. Kate, would you like to take the lead on this?
Excuse me, Kate, can you come up to the microphone just?
So you know from a prior meeting what, Metro North is trying to accomplish, and they wanted to use Leroy West. You were not in favor of that. They've come back with a proposal to utilize a portion of the Norotan Heights station lot nearest the depot. They'd actually given some different proposals, and Ed and I worked with them and felt that if we were to do it, this would be the best place. One of the reasons why we are trying to work with them is that we feel since the state owns these lots, if we say no, the state may say, you have to do it anyway. Because this is a state-owned lot, we're leasing it from the state. The lease expired, I think 10 years ago. But we do not have to go to the RTM because this is it is not a lease of town property, it's a lease of the state-owned property. And, but we do have to get state approval. So if there's a sense from you that you're in favor of doing this, we will start working with Metro North on a proposed lease and then go further up the chain with the approvals that we need.
You're talking about the upper lot then,
No,
No?
the depot side, the inbound side, so
here on
closest
the
to the depot.
Outside, all right, sorry, where it's daily pay.
It's daily, it's voucher pay, yeah.
You know how many spaces they would take up based on all the amount of space they want?
Yeah, we do know from Ed has a count of those.
Okay.
So we would seek to recoup our lost revenue in the lease.
From the state.
No, well, from the Metro North.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
So yes, we would lose revenue because we wouldn't be able to have the daily parkers there, so that would be our goal with the lease, is to make that up.
To at least recoup our,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, go ahead, David.
No, that's fine, I'll email Ed, I was just curious about the number of spaces, I'll email it separate.
But if the point is to remain neutral,
At least neutral, yes.
yeah.
My only concern was that it seems like there's more spots that would be taken from this particular parking lot than from the other parking lot that was proposed.
Right, because the other parking lot had areas where, in one of their original proposals, they could have gone on land that's been cleared.
Right.
And not used for parking. So yes, this would take up more parking spaces.
Right, and my concern is that there seems to be some grumbling regularly, and some rightfully so, about the number of daily spots that are available for folks. Now, right now, there doesn't seem to be an issue with the number of people using the train, but I don't know what that would be in a year.
Yeah, right now, there's not an issue, obviously.
Right.
But yes, when things change,
Yeah.
I would expect it would be an issue.
How long?
That's why we're coming to you to see, do you have an appetite for this?
About 2 years?
We think it could be a year to 2 years. Because what they're trying to do is be able to space their employees out.
Right.
So theoretically, when they don't need to have the social distancing in their offices anymore, they wouldn't need the space anymore.
So a couple of things I'd like to consider. I'd like to support this proposal. It should be 1 year renewable, so that as we approach the 1 year, we can decide to pull the plug on it if we realize that people are needing those parking spots. I also have concerns for the depot. And I'd like to know what we can put in the lease to make sure that the depot is protected, that all of those parking spaces are protected for the depot. And if in the end I'm just throwing this out, if there's any support that the state can give to the depot as an inconvenience for sharing that parking lot. I'd like to talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, we would not be allowing them to encroach on the spaces that
are set aside for the depot.
Okay.
Um,
Anybody else have any questions on this proposal? Concerns about the proposal?
Yeah, could you just clarify again, the depot was my biggest concern here, where it says depot parking. Could you explain briefly how that parking is established, dedicated to the depot? Do we own that land? Do they lease from Metro North or the state?
We lease it all from from the state. And then the depot is like a subtenant. So we have designated the spaces that are to be used only by depot participants. And when we patrol, when we are enforcing, we do have to occasionally kick residents, commuters out of those spaces, but they are designated.
Okay, so we control all, we lease all of it, so we can move parking around. But this is what the Metro North has come in and asked for.
Yeah, and we asked, their original proposal had them kind of in the middle of that lot, and we asked them to move it for traffic concerns, assuming we will someday have people parking there again to commute into the city. We wanted to manage the traffic flow better.
Right, has the depot been briefed on this? Do they have any?
No, not to my knowledge.
This proposal would preclude any parking from that side from daily parkers, correct?
I'm sorry, say that again?
This proposal would preclude any daily parkers for the commuters in this parking lot, correct? On that side?
In about half of it. They wouldn't be using the whole. So you would still be able to have daily parking closer to the station.
Oh, there's still a section of the picture which is not, okay.
Yeah, which you're not seeing, yeah.
Thank you. That's the piece that I was like,
Yeah.
wow, we're taking the whole one.
And we figured, so that way you can still access it from down like where Darien Donut used to be, come in that entrance and you can come down into the lot and still exit the lot there.
But it is a good portion of that parking lot.
Pardon?
It's a good portion of that parking lot
Yeah.
that would be taken, yeah.
Would you send us the number of spaces taken by Metro North in theory and the number of spaces remaining for daily parkers? That's great. Any other questions or concerns? So do you need us to vote on?
Nope, just wanted a sense from you that you were willing to consider this, and we'll work on putting a proposed lease together, which you would have to vote on the lease and.
Is anyone opposed to this proposal moving forward?
I think my concern would be the number of spots versus, from the previous proposal to this proposal that would be removing from the daily parkers.
Okay. And what was the timing again for this equipment? I'm just concerned if the depot gets going again, students being there and equipment, what's the timing of them using this facility again?
You mean on a day-to-day basis?
Hours.
Yeah.
I think it might, I'll have to check on that.
It's 24/7.
I think it is 24/7.
It was basically 7 to 3:30.
Oh, it was? Okay.
That was the original proposal back in the other lot.
Was that, okay, well, that doesn't seem to be.
The same story. They're going to be coming in there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they're going to be leaving at 3:30.
As long as that isn't changing, that doesn't seem to conflict with the depot's use of that facility, which is good. But can we just confirm that's still their plan?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the depot's use of the facility, it shouldn't, maybe if they have evening programs, it might impact their ability to have larger parking because at a certain point in the evening, commuters leave the lot. But during the normal day, it won't change their parking at all.
I think what I'd like to say is where I see designated the Metro North employee and truck parking. If there's a way in the lease to call out overnight truck and equipment parking so that it's as far away from the depot as possible, because I know they do use those spaces for evening programming.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. Transfers, discuss and take action on a request for transfer for the Parks and Recreation security.
So I think from your discussion with Pam earlier, you understand what this is about. We have had to add additional personnel for security this season.
Kate, can I ask, is this what it's been costing up until now, or is this the projected cost for the rest of the year, that $35,000? Is that all encompassing, or is it just until now?
I believe this is a fiscal 21 transfer, so it's an estimate of what it will cost us for.
This whole year?
For the summer, for July and August and into September.
Okay.
So if we wanted to extend the time of the monitors, that's not reflected in this transfer?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions about this transfer? Money well spent, in my opinion.
Could you just comment on where the money is coming from and why it is not needed in those 4 categories?
No. Sorry, I'm not, I'm going to assume the seasonal is because we haven't been hiring seasonal people to work in the office or to run some of the programs we would hire. But why Pam has estimated that she won't need the other funds, I can't speak to. I'm sorry.
We'll get an accounting of that, why there's that level of money available.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
always ask, why is it not needed? I mean, not that I don't agree with the reason why we need to
Right,
move
but
it,
yeah,
but
why,
that
why,
means-
why we feel that that money would be free, yeah.
Correct.
My
I'll ask her
concern-
that question and have it get to you.
My concern would be in repair and maintenance. You know, are there things that we won't be doing in this budget year because she's making this transfer?
Possibly. I'll have to get back to you on that one.
And this is for 2 staff members, right? For 1 during the week? This is for 2 staff, 1 during the week and 1 on the other words on the weekends?
We have 1 during the week and 2 on the weekends.
Right, okay.
Is that 3 people? Just
No,
curious.
1 during the week. So it's,
One individual works 7 days a week?
I'm not sure, I'm not actually sure whether it's 2 individuals or 3 individuals, but 1 is on duty. Only 1 is on duty during the week, and on the weekends, we have 2 on duty.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to transfer $35,000 from seasonal temporary potable water facility repair and facility maintenance to security services for the Parks and Recreation Department.
So moved.
Kip moves. May I have a second?
Second.
David, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we have several meeting minutes. Minutes of the special meeting of June 29th. Mine are out of order.
Everything 5, 7, and 8 are all pro forma. They're just open meeting, close,
Yep.
go to executive session, come back from it. I don't think there's any comments to be made.
Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of June 29th.
So moved.
Kip moves. May I have a second?
Second, Sarah.
Sarah, thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Minutes of July 6th, the regular meeting.
They're under, about mid-page, where it says Ms. Newman asked to revise the agenda, I believe that was Ms. McNamara. It's about halfway down the page, it's.
First page.
Ms. Newman asked to revise the agenda, it's actually Ms. McNamara.
Thanks, Sarah. That's correct. Any other?
Date, Kate?
After Pledge of Allegiance.
July 6th, regular meeting, first page. Any other corrections or additions to these
On the
minutes?
second page,
Yep.
under new business, go down to discussion on public comment. Starts with Ms. Stevenson thanked Ms. McNamara for, not from, bringing up this issue, I would think. And then public comment is not the same as public hearing. I would say per an opinion of town council, or per direction of town council. My last question on that was, did we not agree that we would not, I know you, at the start, that you didn't want to make any decision, no vote on the issue, but didn't we agree that we're not going to read aloud, the Board of Selectmen are not going to read aloud an email?
Correct.
Well, I don't know, is it, they discussed it, but
Yeah, I have issue with that paragraph that begins Ms. McNamara. My comments spoke specifically first to the agenda, which said we would vote on whether or not we would read public comments, because that's how the agenda was stated for that meeting. And then my suggestion was that we would instead accept public comment into the record and not be read, as it is not done and not by other bodies, and we would not want to misconstrue the intent of the writer.
Do you want to send me a written revision and we can both, put these on a later agenda?
Sure. Okay, so we're going to hold on these minutes. Okay. Special meeting minutes of July 7th.
Move to approve?
Okay, thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
David? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Special meeting minutes of July 6th.
Move to approve?
Kip, thank you. Second? David seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. We, I don't think so.
I don't remember them. Did I abstain?
Did you abstain on that vote?
I don't recall.
The vote we just took today? I don't believe you abstained.
No.
Okay. I have not received any public comment for today's meeting. Kate?
There's nobody present who voted on.
Okay. Good, all right. Agenda review. We will put back the pedestrian improvements presentation by Jeremy Ginsberg. Anything else?
Can we get an update, just, it could be verbally in the report on the, from Parks and Recs on those transfers? And the grants, that's still outstanding on a grant application? Yes.
Grant agreement. Yeah, that'll take some time.
Okay.
Yeah, that will take some legal time to put together a working draft of that for everybody to review.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know the gifts, we're still gonna wait on that. Okay.
We're starting to work on it.
Perfect.
Had a lot to do with
Oh,
changing regulations.
Okay, anything else for agenda review? No? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
David, may I have a second?
Second.
Kip, all those in favor say aye.
aye.
Great, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.